My girlfriend rejected my marriage proposal in front of all my friends, but when I discovered she was cheating on me with her coworker, I kicked her out that same night, and she never saw coming what happened next. I'm 30 years old. I work in business consulting, and I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago literally changed my entire life. I guess I should start at the beginning. Well, not the very beginning, but from when I met Penelope like 5 years ago, I think, or maybe it was 4.5 years. I'm not sure. I met her at a friend's party. You know, one of those parties where you don't know anyone and you stay glued to the only friend you brought, and she was there with her friends Ariana and Quinn, and the same ones who would later be present at the worst moment of my life. But I'll get to that later. The thing is that Penelope was 27 when all this happened, and I was 30, and we had been together for 4 complete years. 4 years in which I thought we were building something real. Something that was going to last forever, you know? During those 4 years, I basically lived the perfect relationship, or so I thought. Penelope moved into my apartment after a year and a half of dating, and everything seemed to be going well. We shared expenses, cooked together on Sundays, had that comfortable routine that people look for in a long-term relationship. My friends, Wesley and Preston, who are my best friends since college, always said we were the most stable couple they knew, and my sister Danielle, who is super protective of me and never likes any of my girlfriends. Even she seemed to approve of Penelope at first. We celebrated all our anniversaries, took short trips on weekends when we could, watched series together at night after work, like the normal couple life you see in movies. You know what I mean? We never fought much, maybe silly arguments about what to have for dinner or about leaving clothes lying around, but nothing serious, nothing that made me think something was wrong. Looking back now, I guess I should have seen the signs, but when you're in love, or when you think you're in the right relationship, you ignore certain things. Like, for example, Penelope started going out more with her coworkers like a year ago, maybe less. And I thought it was normal, that she was making friends at her new job and that was good for her. She would come home late some nights saying she had gone out for drinks with the team, and I never questioned anything because, well, I also went out with Wesley and Preston sometimes, so I couldn't be a hypocrite. Danielle mentioned to me a couple of times that Penelope seemed distant when she came to family gatherings, that she didn't talk to me as much as before, but I told her she was exaggerating, that she was just tired from work. My sister has this sixth sense for detecting problems, but at that moment I didn't want to listen to her. The thing is that after 4 years together, I was completely sure that Penelope was the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I know it sounds cheesy and all that, but it was what I felt, and I started planning the proposal like 3 months before doing it. I talked to Wesley and Preston, and they helped me organize everything. We looked for the perfect place, a nice resort like 2 hours from the city, not super luxurious but special enough for the moment. I bought the ring, a ring that literally cost me 3 months' salary, and I made sure it was exactly the style that Penelope liked, because I had been taking mental notes every time we passed by a jewelry store, and she stopped to look. I coordinated with Ariana and Quinn to be there that weekend. I thought it would be nice to have her best friends present to celebrate afterwards, and I also invited Wesley and Preston because, well, they're practically my brothers. So, the day came. It was a Saturday afternoon. I don't remember the exact date, but it was in spring, I think March or April. The weather was nice. I told Penelope we were going to spend the weekend at the resort because we needed a break, that it had been a heavy month at work for both of us, and we needed to relax. She agreed without problem, seemed happy even, packed her suitcase and everything normal. When we arrived at the resort, her friends were already there waiting as if it were a coincidence, and Wesley and Preston also showed up as a surprise, and Penelope seemed happy to see them all. She was smiling and hugging them. We spent the afternoon together, went to the pool, had some beers. Everything was going perfectly according to my plan. I was nervous, like, super nervous. I felt like my heart was going to explode every time I thought about the proposal moment, but it was a good nervousness. Exciting, you know? When night came, I took everyone to walk through the resort gardens because there was an area with beautiful lights and an incredible view, and that's when I decided to do it. I got down on one knee in front of Penelope, took out the ring, and said all the words I had been practicing in my head for weeks. I told her I loved her. That, I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, that she was my best friend and my partner, all those things you say in those moments. And then I waited for her answer with the ring in my hand, smiling like an idiot, and everyone was there watching. Wesley had his phone recording everything. Ariana and Quinn had their hands over their mouths, looking surprised. Preston was smiling, and I just waited for Penelope to say, yes, but she didn't. She stood there staring at me with an expression I can't describe, like between confusion and panic, and after what seemed like an eternity, but was probably just a few seconds, she said, I need more time. I'm not ready for this. I froze with the ring in my hand, not knowing what to do, thinking that maybe I hadn't heard right, that maybe she had said something else. But no, she had definitely rejected the proposal. The silence that followed was the most awkward of my life. Nobody knew what to say or do. Wesley slowly lowered his phone. Ariana and Quinn looked at each other like saying, what do we do now? And I just got up from the ground, feeling like everyone was looking at me with pity. Penelope tried to touch my arm and say something like, I'm sorry, or we need to talk, but I just put the ring in my pocket and walked back to the room without saying anything, because I literally didn't know what to say. That night was horrible. She tried to explain to me that it wasn't that she didn't love me, that she just needed more time to be sure, that marriage was a big step, and she wasn't ready yet. I didn't understand anything. Like, we had been together 4 years, we lived together, we talked about the future all the time, we had plans, and suddenly she wasn't ready. I asked her how much more time she needed, a year, 2 years, 5 years, and she couldn't answer. She just said, I don't know. I stayed awake all night going over it, feeling humiliated and confused, wondering what I had done wrong, if I had misinterpreted our entire relationship, if there were signs I didn't see. The next day we went back home. The trip back was pure silence, 2 hours in the car barely talking except for superficial comments about traffic or weather. Wesley and Preston texted me asking if I was okay, if I needed to talk. But I didn't respond much. I just told them I was processing everything. When we got to the apartment, the tension was unbearable. We didn't know how to act with each other, whether to sleep in the same bed, whether to cook together, whether to act like nothing had happened. Penelope stayed quiet most of the time. Me too. And each silence felt heavier than the last. I called Danielle that same night. I needed to talk to someone who knew me well and would tell me the truth without filters. My sister listened to the whole story, and when I finished, there was a long silence. And then she said, Maxwell, this doesn't make sense. If she loved you and wanted a future with you, she would have said yes, or at least, given you a real reason to wait, not this vague thing about needing more time. And then Danielle added something I didn't want to hear, but deep down knew, made sense. She said, Are you sure there isn't someone else? Because this sounds like she's keeping her options open, you know? I told her no, that Penelope wasn't like that she had never given me reasons to doubt, but the seed of doubt was already planted, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like 2 weeks passed in which Penelope and I basically lived like roommates. She left for work early and came back late. I did the same, and when we coincided in the apartment, we barely talked. I didn't know if I should pressure her to make a decision or give her the space she said she needed. And meanwhile, I was going crazy with my own thoughts. Wesley invited me out for drinks on a Friday. I think it was Friday. And told me I needed to get out of that toxic situation, even if just for a few hours. We went to a bar near his house, and I talked. Well, more like he talked, and I listened, because I didn't have the energy to even form coherent sentences. He told me I deserved someone who was sure about me, that it was clear Penelope had doubts, and it wasn't fair for me to stay in limbo, waiting for her to decide what to do with her life. Then Danielle called me one afternoon, like 3 weeks after the failed proposal, and told me something that basically confirmed my worst fears. She told me that a friend of hers had seen Penelope several times, having lunch and coffee with a guy, a coworker apparently, and they seemed very close, like it wasn't just friendship. My sister didn't want to tell me at first because she wasn't sure, but after seeing them together several times, she felt she had to let me know. I felt like someone threw a bucket of cold water on me. Everything started to make sense. The late arrivals, the distant behavior, the rejection of the proposal, everything. I couldn't believe it, but at the same time, I knew it was true. I felt it in my stomach. That horrible feeling that you're being cheated on and you've known it all along, but didn't want to admit it. That same night, I waited for Penelope to come home. It must have been like 8 or 9 at night. And when she came in with her bag and jacket, I was sitting in the living room waiting for her. I told her, "We need to talk." And she immediately turned pale. I think she knew something had happened. I asked her directly, "Are you seeing someone else?" And it wasn't really a question. It was more like a statement, because I already knew the answer. Penelope stood there without saying anything for a moment, and then started with the whole thing about it being all in her head, that she was confused, that she hadn't planned for it to happen, but yes, she had been going out with a coworker and didn't know exactly what she felt. I can't describe the fury I felt at that moment. Like, it wasn't just anger, it was betrayal, it was humiliation, it was everything together. I yelled at her, which I almost never do. I told her how could she possibly put me through that embarrassment in front of all our friends when she already knew there was someone else. How could she be so selfish and so cowardly? Penelope started crying, saying she didn't know how to handle it, that she didn't want to hurt me, and I told her it was too late for that she had hurt me more by lying to me and keeping me in limbo. I told her, "You have to leave this apartment. Now, tonight. I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here." She tried to say she had nowhere to go, that she couldn't just leave like that, but I had already made the decision and wasn't going to change my mind. I gave her an hour to pack her most important things, told her she could come back for the rest later, but she had to leave that night. She called Ariana crying and asked her to pick her up, and I stayed in my room listening to her pack while trying not to think about anything. When she left, the apartment was silent. A different silence from the last few weeks, a silence that felt like relief and pain at the same time. The following days were weird. I expected to feel worse, but I actually felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off me. Wesley and Preston came to stay with me one weekend to make sure I was okay. They brought pizza and beer, and we watched bad movies. Basically, they did what good friends do in these situations. Danielle also came and helped me pack all the things Penelope had left. We put them in boxes so she could pick them up later without having to interact much with me. Like a week after Penelope left, I got a call from Nora, her younger sister, who was like 23 or 24 years old at the time. I thought she was going to defend her or ask me to forgive her, but to my surprise, she told me she just wanted to say she was very sorry for what had happened, that Penelope had told her everything, and that she thought I had done the right thing by ending the relationship. She told me her sister had always had problems making decisions and committing to things, and that it was better that it happened now than after we got married. It was weird but also comforting to hear that from someone in her family. Like it made me feel I wasn't crazy, that my feelings were valid. I sold the ring like a month later. I didn't want to have it stored in a drawer reminding me all the time of what had happened. I lost money, obviously. Used rings aren't worth the same as when you buy them new. But I didn't care. I needed to get rid of it. With that money, I went on a trip with Wesley and Preston to the beach for a long weekend, like a healing trip or whatever you want to call it. And honestly, it helped me a lot to be away from everything, just enjoying the sea and good company. Now, like 4 months after all this, I'm in a much better place. Penelope tried to contact me a couple of times. She wrote me long messages saying she had broken up with the other guy, that she had realized she made a mistake, that she wanted to talk. I didn't respond. I blocked her number after the third message because there was no point in keeping that door open. Danielle tells me she's proud of me for standing firm, and honestly, I'm proud of myself too, for not falling into that temptation of going back to someone who clearly didn't value me. Last week, I went to dinner with a girl I met at the gym. Nothing serious yet, just a casual date to get to know each other better. And I was surprised at how good I felt. How easy it was to talk with someone new without all that emotional baggage from the past. I don't know if it's going to turn into something more, but the fact that I can be open to new possibilities feels good, feels like a new beginning. And that's enough for now, I suppose.